Hey everybody, it's Jay, it's Eric. We have returned from the full 24-hour race at Carolina Motorsports Park. I just want to say, I say this every single time, full 24-hour races, everybody should do one. Nobody should ever have to do more than one because they're just terrible. You think it's going to be super fun and it'll be romantic and exciting, and then you're in the car and it's 2:30 in the morning and you can't see anything and you're exhausted and you gotta pee and it's, they're the worst. I just hate them so much. Okay, rant over.
Now, that being said, if we do have more of these 24-hour races, if is the big question there, the one thing that we really liked that we saw was people's ability to do things with lighting. So these creative LEDs, I think we might make that mandatory going forward.
I think we have to make that mandatory going forward. I think from now on, for a nighttime race, you've got to have something that when it goes by, it's like Las Vegas. That's what we want to see from now on.
So this race was just profoundly weird, even for a Lemons race and a Lemons race in South Carolina. We had five cars catch on fire, which is kind of astounding considering the average for a normal Lemons race is about 0. So that was kind of weird. The driving was good otherwise, but there was a lot of other really odd stuff happening.
That's totally true. Among the really odd things, this has not happened since Summit Point 10 years ago. We had I assume, methed out crackhead, wander across the racetrack at, I don't know, 2 in the morning, some guy, turns out he's got a shack in the holler on some property nearby. He got lost. And he was walking through the woods at 2 in the morning and saw these cars going by at 110 miles an hour and said, seems like a good place for me to go. So we had to stop the race. Crackhead on the track. We had to deal with that. He was escorted to the local jail.
Bring your ankles up to your butt.
Swap man, what's my safe word?
Bring your ankles up to your butt.
That's how far I go. You think I'm in Pilates?
And then we had another thing. This has never happened before where one guy's headset leaked water, opened his mic, and all of a sudden we had basically no comms.
We lost the transmission, sir.
And I just have to say, I assumed that was a race team with an illegal radio stepping on our FCC licensed comms, and I got on the PA and I said, look, you idiots, you're screwing this up. You guys with the bad radios have to stop doing this, or else we're going to have to stop the race. I yelled at them. It was totally us. It wasn't them at all. It was 100% our fault.
My bad.
So at this race, we had a lot of really great first-time teams, and among them was this Crown Vic team, who were sponsored by Cosmo Tires. Now, we, of course, are sponsored by Yokohama, so we can't say too many nice things about other tire brands, but they ran in this race a set of Cosmo Mucho Macho tires.
Mucho Macho!
That's a hell of a tire name right there. They did all right, and when they made a mistake, the team captain pulled his driver out and made him unspin himself, which was pretty great. We're always in favor of that. That was hella sweet.
I want to add here, first of all, I don't think Yokohama's terribly worried about Cosmo tires. And second of all, if they don't start naming their tires things like Mucho Macho, someday soon they're going to have to be worried about Cosmo. So get on that, guys. Hella sweet, we had Civic Rad. This was a 1990 Civic, and the team came with a fabulous period theme. They had a can of Surge, they had Trapper Keeper paint job, and in their Discman, they had a Limp Bizkit CD. It's perfect.
Just but terrible at this race is the nearly adequate racing Ford Pinto, which, by the way, is a total misnomer because they are nowhere near adequate. In the past, they've struggled to do, 5 laps for a whole 2-day weekend, so why not bring it to a 24-hour race? As you might guess, they finished dead effing last, and all 3 of the electrical components in that thing totally fried themselves, so but terrible for those guys. We hope we see them back with a hella sweet weekend soon.
Hella sweet Florida Man Racing, which is kind of creating a bit of a legacy at this point. Florida Man Racing brought a Chevy HHR, and Donnie did this up as a Corvette C fill-in-the-blank R racing He started about 30 minutes before tech. I think it was some yellow tempera paint was the extent of his decoration, but it was a Chevy HHR. He had just been to the Corvette Museum in Bowling Green, Kentucky, or as we call it, the Cracker Barrel of car museums, and had brought us back a whole bunch of issues of
Corvette magazine!
Hella sweet. The Squirt and Coronas brought their super duper charged SLK out again. Eric put this thing in Class B thinking, man, this thing blows up all the time. There's no way. It is a fast car, but it's so overstressed. It's just always a disaster. There's parts flying all over the place. Well, this time this thing went out. From tech, it was making this horrible high-pitched, squealing, mechanical disaster noise. But it went out and it went around. It was really fast. And it wound up leading the race kind of out of the box. It was in contention. It led for hours and hours and hours. It was an incredible showing. SLK Class B compressor wins the race overall.
I'm going to stop you there, Jay. Actually, they didn't. What happened was they led the race. I went to bed for a couple hours and said, don't worry, everybody, it's going to blow up. And then it launched a connecting rod through the oil pan, as expected.
I stand corrected. Magic isn't true.
It's close!
The SLK blew the hell up like we all knew that it would.
Now, the Squirt and Coronas have had several spin-off teams over the years, including the Knox Vegas Lowballers for one. This time they had a new spin-off team. It was an all-female team in a Dodge Neon called My Little Neon, making it the most girly possible theme. Guess what? They actually finished the race, unlike the Squirt and Corona's two Mercedes that didn't.
Super hella sweet was the Dirtsons, which was a B210 SX. I don't even know if that's a thing. So this is the former SCCA, i.e. Senior Citizens Car Club of America, or whatever they call themselves. They rebranded themselves as the Dirtsons, featuring a Tammy Lynn Dirtson, who is the team captain. The conceit was they're the Dirtsons, and they won the lottery, and so now they're going big-time racing, and they showed up. Sequin dresses. It was really a good show. As we saw last year with their SCCA theme, they're really good at themes.
So the terrible Tercel was back this year. Last year it was completely stock, looked like you'd see it in the Walmart parking lot. This time around they painted it like a Tercel and added some JDM-style turbo plumbing that was about 80 feet long. Didn't make it quicker, made it have cool whooshy turbo sounds, that counts big. And even better, when they went off the track, we overheard from the corner that there was a brown number 2 dropped off the track.
Who does number 2 work for?
That's right, buddy. You show that turd who's boss.
Hella sweet. Duff Beer, they brought their Volvo 850. This is a pretty fantastic car, actually. It's a pretty good race car, if you want to call it that, for a C-Class car. They were kind of dominating C-Class. Transmission let go, and they figured out the only way they could get their automatic to actually move the car forward was to trick it into snow mode, which meant third gear all the time, which gave them a top speed of like 45 miles an hour. But they stayed out, and even at that, after all that time off the track, they almost won Class C in this car. Great show.
A car we seldom talk about that is really great is the Psycho Billy Crap Can, also known as the BM Whatever.
Whatever.
This is a BMW E36 that Speedy Cop built years ago with some Plymouth Cranbrook, some 1940s Buick in it. These guys bought it from him. They've run it for years and years and years. Got a whole bunch of top 10s in it. It's a great car. Also, one of the team drove a sweet 1970s Honda Civic to the track to race. All that was hella sweet. Really well done, guys.
All right, that gets us to the awards. First award I want to talk about is the Idiot of Effluency. This is not the Index of Effluency. This is the Idiot of Effluency. This is an award that goes out to a competition we didn't even know we were having. But it turned out that two guys, Derek Steinkamp and Major W. Christian Mental Ward, were both going to race in both 24-hour races on different coasts of the United States on the same weekend. They got it all figured out. All they had to do was do the first stint at CMP on their respective cars, rush to an airport, get on an airplane, fly to Denver, drive from the Denver airport the 9 hours or whatever the hell it takes really to get to High Plains, and then they would have time to also do a session in the High Plains 24 hour before that race was over. So we said, okay, this is great. We're gonna encourage them to do this in a very lemony way, which was like, go through TSA in full driver gear, and then we're gonna give them points, and whoever is most successful at this, they're gonna get their own trophy. That's the idiot of Effluency. So, what were the totals?
So for Derek, the points come out to 107 laps. That's 10,700 points. One broken car. That's 2,000. $300 lift rides, that's 970 points. Driver suit through the airport, that's 850. Conversations with the TSA about his mental state, that's 2,800 points.
Big number. That's a big number.
Big number. His trash talking was good.
Yeah, well, I might be named Derek, but at least I'm not named Christian Mental Ward.
Gave him 17,000 for that, and a lifetime ban from the rental cars was 13,000, giving his total 47,320.
Wow, that's really good. That's gonna be hard to beat. All right, so let's see I got Mental stuff here. How did Mental do? He made 50 laps. That's 5,000 points. He broke a car into half. So he's doing better there. That's 3,000 points.
About half cars big, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and he had to take a second flight, too, because, being an Air Force major, he couldn't just actually get there in the air. Right. He did wear his driver's suit through the airport. That's 850. He did a lot of trash talking. That was 25,000 points there.
If you want to do something stupid, you don't send a guy named Derek. You send a guy named Mental!
And he lent us adorable dogs in Colorado. I wasn't in Colorado, so I didn't get that, but that was good for 8,470. So that's a tie. Well, I mean, what are the chances?
So Heroic Fix at this race went to Rally Fart and their Eagle Talon. I don't know what the actual tally for Mitsubishi's winning Heroic Fix is, but it's got to be pretty high.
It's high.
Yeah.
It's either between Heroic Fix and Screwed. It's astronomical.
So the Rally Fart guys showed up with their Eagle Talon. The engine was, of course, out of a Hyundai Sonata, as you do.
As one does.
And, of course, they blew it up. Now, before the race, they've been smart, and they tracked down a potential donor on Facebook Marketplace. And they said, we'll give the guy a call if we need to. Well, 2 hours into the race, they're calling the guy. Turns out he lived about 90 minutes away from the track, out in the boonies in South Carolina. So they show up. There's no cell reception, so they give them all of their cash, which is like $150, and they say, well, we'll pay you the rest when we get back to cell service, which turns out was about a half hour away. This guy figured he'd been ripped off, so after like 10 minutes, he called the cops, who were then looking for this Hyundai Sonata driving down the road. Once they got back in cell reception, the Rally Fart guys kind of straightened everything out, and then proceeded to drive this Sonata the 90 minutes back to the racetrack, which was more like 3.5 hours because it had a death wobble and they had to have their heads out the windows because of all the mold. Once they got back, they swapped the engines. It only took them about 2 hours, ran the rest of the race, but they almost got arrested in backwaters of South Carolina. That's pretty heroic.
It's important to know that when he got pulled over by the cops, this car was missing like half of its bodywork. It had no fenders, and he was just driving it down the road. And part of the argument to the guy was like, I wouldn't steal this. And the cop said, no, you wouldn't steal this. Your story checks out. Have a nice day. But as Eric pointed out, that does take us to the second Mitsubishi bifecta of Screwed and Fix. This was Dave Morrow. He has this Mitsubishi Mirage. He's had it forever. Dave has a lot of fantastic cars. He's had the 1,000cc twin-engine Eldorado. He had a twin turbocharged van. He's just had spectacular stuff. Homemade Pontiac Banshee. His least interesting car is this Mirage. All of his cars, or almost all of his cars, are powered by the Sound of Power General Motors 3.8 and 4-speed automatic transmission. This one is no exception. What made this an interesting car this time is it burst into flame. And I just gotta say, we had, as mentioned earlier, a lot of fires, more fires at this one race than probably the last 3 years combined. I don't know why that was, but Dave's was the most spectacular. He was coming around, he was about to come off track, approaching pit road, and the car just burst into flame. We still don't know why Dave got out. That was fine. It did cork the track exit for about 3 minutes with a burning car. He thinks it's the wiring, and he said, That's the one thing that I wasn't really sure about on his General Motors V6 powered, supercharged 15-year-old Mitsubishi Mirage. So he's going to go back and check that. Nicely done, Dave.
Judge's choice of this race went to the Jackson 5. Now, this was one of those teams who, before the race, are throwing up all kinds of red flags for us. You know, they registered like 8 days before the race. They didn't really know if their car was going to pass tech. It was a big struggle to get them registered. But once they showed up, their story just kept getting better and better. So the Jackson 5 is a family team of the Jacksons, husband, wife, 2 sons, and a daughter-in-law. And they started out with this idea to build the first thing they found on Craigslist, which was a $400 Toyota Corolla. It was a great Lemons car. And they bought it, and then the next day the seller gave them a call and said, "Hey, the car that I sold you, I can't legally sell you that. Can I have it back?"
Following the girl, I didn't even wanna rap.
I want you back.
You know, they could have fought in court over a Lemons car, but I think we all...
A $400 Corolla Lemons car, yeah. We all know how that would have gone.
Yeah, so they just said, okay, forget about it. It turns out they had a friend of a friend who had a garage full of cars and was ready to sell them one of them, and he would part with this old SCCA racer, Honda CRX SI. Now, this is not a Lemons car, and we acknowledge this, but we were just so dumbfounded by its condition. It was unreal.
Spectacular car. Spectacular car. It was like brand new.
You know, it's a 30-year-old CRX. The dash wasn't cracked. The engine was clean. Every inch of the bodywork was perfect. It was unreal, and they only paid $6,000 for it, which is a total steal.
Let me point out that Eric is using the past tense when he says dash wasn't cracked, body was perfect, engine was clean. All of those were past tense. Continue.
As it turned out, the husband and wife were there celebrating their 30th anniversary, and what better place could you do that than a Lemons race with a spotless Honda CRX? We love seeing families. They had a great time. They had awesome dogs. Judge's choice.
Org choice went to Grim Reaper Racing and their 6-cylinder Fox Mustang. These guys have been at it for 11 years. They keep coming back. They do great. They don't cause us any heartburn. They have a great attitude. They're teaching a lot of people how to go racing. They're just fantastic. So this was a Lifetime Achievement Award. They always do really well. They finished 6th overall in this long-ass race. These guys, they really have it figured out. Very well done, Org choice.
That brings us to the Index of Effluency, our top trophy. This went to the Semi-Sentient Centenarians and their 1996 Buick Century. 1996.
That was a good year for Buick Centuries.
That's right. This is the last year. So that's probably a jumping off point for a future Lemons World episode. But this Century in particular had the GM Sound of Power V6, 4-speed automatic transmission, and is a Buick. It somehow was quicker than about 20 cars in the field and beat a whole bunch of them. They finished 28th overall in this thing, which, if you're keeping track at home, is 2 spots better than the SLK compressor. Well done. Apparently the car you need to have in a 24-hour race is a Buick Century.
I think we all knew that. Okay, here's Lemons in a nutshell.